Okay, so hopefully you see my big screen here. And I'm just going to go back here for a second. It doesn't want to go back. Oh, this is okay. All right. Jalasi, welcome back, everyone, to our second session of the book study on the Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. We're delighted to see familiar faces returning, and we extend a warm welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time today. And today's session is titled A Gift in Motion, and we will explore our relationships to nature and what our language tells us about these connections. Please feel free to use the chat function to introduce yourselves and the land you live and work on and or play on. And before we begin, I just want to take a quick look at our agenda for tonight. So we're going to do a welcome and opening. And then we're going to hear from Brianna Brown, whom I'll introduce momentarily. And then you'll hear from me while we talk about A Gift in Motion. And then I've built in some extra time for us to do some discussions today. Just one question, and we're going to keep things nice and easy and give everybody lots of chance to share this week. And then we've just got a little bit of housekeeping, and then Brianna is going to close us in a good way. So before we begin, I am going to invite my colleague, Rachel Warden, to open us up with a land acknowledgement.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Rachel Warden, and I work with the Global Partnerships team at KAIROS. I invite you to plant your feet firmly on the ground, and if you can, look outside the window. Some of you are seeing storms approaching. I have a Serviceberry tree right outside my front window, which I have always appreciated for its abundance in fruit and the birds and squirrels it attracts. In a few weeks, they'll be feasting on the berries, and I find I'm appreciating it a lot more since reading this book. I'm connecting in from my home in Takaronto, which, as many of you know, in Mohawk means where the trees are standing in water. I live on Garrison Creek watershed, and some of the houses on my street are sinking, following the contours of what was once quite a mighty waterway. So I can imagine trees standing in water, and I'm reminded of the power of this land and of nature. Since living here, I have learned that Takaronto is covered under Treaty 13 and the Williams Treaties. And I have learned that it's a traditional territory of many First Nations peoples, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. I've also learned that Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory, a treaty between Anishinaabe, Mississauga, and the Haudenosaunee to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. The dish, which is sometimes called the bowl, represents what is now southern Ontario, from Great Lakes to Quebec, and from Lake Simcoe to the United States. And I think the wisdom of the dish or bowl is so powerful and important in our discussion today. I think of the following quote: "We all eat out of a dish, all of us that share the territory with one spoon. That means we have to share the responsibility of ensuring the dish is never empty, which includes taking care of the land and the creatures we share it with. Importantly, there are no knives at the table, representing that there must be peace." I'm a settler. I came here with my family when I was 3 years old from England and settled in Scarborough. We stayed, and we were allowed to stay. I recognize the privilege of that as a European white immigrant. Like most people from my generation, I learned very little in school about the land and the history of colonization and genocide of Indigenous people that took place on this land. I've been very fortunate in the paths I've chosen to take in my life to meet people, Indigenous elders, women, youth, partners who have shared their knowledge and wisdom with me and who have challenged me. Some of these people I have met while accompanying global partners. some of the people I've had the privilege to travel with. I keep their words in mind as I do land acknowledgements like this, such as to speak about your territorial acknowledgement in the past continues that dominant narrative. As we meet here today, we know that Indigenous people here in Toronto and throughout Turtle Island continue to experience ongoing colonization and displacement, where land acknowledgements are sometimes offered in place of land itself. And at the same time, we know that Indigenous people across Turtle Island continue to resist, thrive, celebrate, create, propose ways forward based on right relations, abundance, and reciprocity. We know that a land acknowledgement should be an obligation to act. And I believe that our conversations and learnings today will challenge us to do exactly that. Thank you.
Hey, so I think it's me now. Hi, I'm Brianna. I just wanted to give a disclaimer before I start speaking, that I just have some jaw injuries and I still need a surgery. So sometimes my speaking's a little funny, or I might just need an extra minute. And then that makes me a little bit nervous. But I know I met a lot of you a year ago when I did a KAIROS speaking engagement with Beth. And I know that you're all really, really good, kind-hearted people. So thank you so much. And I'm really, really grateful to be with you. So today, I offer this opening prayer from my heart, from my ancestors, and from the lands and waters that have nourished us for generations. Okay. So, spirit of the land, spirit of the waters, spirit of the air and fire, we gather today with open hearts. We thank you for the breath in our lungs, for the strength of our spirits, and for the wisdom of the earth that holds us up each day. We honor the ancestors who walked these lands before us, who kept our cultures alive even when they were threatened. We honor the children, the generations to come, whose futures depend on the choices we make today. May our words today be careful and kind. May our minds be open. May our spirits be strong. May we move forward with courage and humility and fierce commitment to justice. We pray for the healing of the land, for the healing of the waters, and the healing of all peoples. We lift up the voices of women and Indigenous peoples, of Two-Spirit peoples, and those whose stories have been silenced for too long. We remember that justice for the land cannot be separated from justice for our peoples. May we listen deeply, may we act boldly, may we dream collectively, and may we honor all that has been entrusted to us. Nakumi, Miigwech, Masicho, thank you. So I'm going to start now. Thank you for welcoming me to this space again. My name is Brianna Brown. I am Inuk, originally from Nunatsiavut, Labrador, which means our beautiful land. I grew up there and I lived there until I was 18 years old. And I currently live on unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory, also known as Ottawa. And I come to you today not only as a political advisor, as my job title, a traditional storyteller and knowledge keeper, but as someone shaped by the land and waters and by the struggle to protect it. I want to begin by acknowledging the lands we each occupy, the waters that sustain us, and the ancestors whose presence we still feel when we pay attention and we listen closely. And thank you so much, Rachel, for your land acknowledgement. So the Serviceberry, Robin Kimmerer's Serviceberry, invites us to imagine an economy based not on extraction, but on reciprocity. One where the currency is care, relationship, and mutual nourishment. The serviceberry, she writes, is a fruit that gives generously, asking for nothing in return except that we receive it with gratitude and respect. This resonates deeply with Inuit culture and Indigenous ways of knowing. The land has always sustained us, not as a commodity, but as a relative. The rivers, the berries, the animals, the caribou, they are not resources, but kin. But what happens when this type of relationship is broken due to colonization and a culture in which we consume nonstop? In my experience, I had the opportunity to reflect on a lot of violence that I had experienced throughout my life, and a lot of things that had happened due to systemic racism. And so myself and the Labrador Land Protectors had decided to start the land back movement. It was a land back movement. It was a movement that was originated by myself and the land protectors. And when it began, it was not just about sovereignty in the abstract, it was about survival. It was about protecting the Churchill River, which stretches from Manitoba across to Labrador like a lifeline, feeding Indigenous communities our food chains, our cultures, and our collective memories. Mega hydro dams were forced onto our territories without free, prior, and informed consent. No proper impact assessments were conducted with the entire communities. No genuine consultation was had, just power lines and promises, all for the Southern benefit, while we are left with consequences. These dams choke our rivers, cause flooding, change migratory routes, contaminate waters with methyl mercury, and collapse ecosystems. They flood traditional hunting grounds and berry picking areas. And when our lands are displaced, so are we. When we become displaced, we are met with culture shock and isolation, which contributes to experiences of violence at alarming rates. The impacts are not just ecological, they're deeply personal and deeply human. Loss of access to traditional foods means loss of nutrition, but also of cultural continuity. We see higher rates of diabetes, depression, health issues, and substance use. Another issue that had come into our lands is man camps that are built for the men working on these natural resource extractive projects. Unfortunately, they do not get to see their families or their loved ones for weeks while working in these man camps. It is isolated and very lonely. Therefore, man camps bring a lot of drugs into our communities. And they often have a lot of differences in cultures to the Inuit people and to Indigenous peoples of those lands. And unfortunately, many women are sought for objectification and then disposal, ultimately fueling the national crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit peoples. Another issue we see paired with the issues of substance abuse and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls plus is intergenerational trauma, compounded by climate and environmental injustice. We are told to be resilient, but what does resilience mean when you're denied healthcare for being Indigenous? I have lived through this after being struck by a car and suffering a severe jaw infection. I was ignored, misdiagnosed, and denied adequate treatment, not because of a lack of resources, but because of systemic racism. Because the system still sees Indigenous lives as less urgent, less deserving. During the many years I was sick, I was really weak physically. I lived in St. John's, Newfoundland, where I was going to university when I was hit by the car. I had trouble breathing due to a neck sprain. I was dizzy from a severe concussion and jaw infection. My leg had severe bursitis in the hip. And I have herniated discs in my spine as well, so my walking was so imbalanced. When I went to seek healthcare many times over 2 weeks of going to the emergency room, I would wait for hours and hours until I saw a doctor, and the doctor would often yell at me because they had assumed that I was high or drunk every time I was there because of the imbalance in my walking. This is not just negligence, it is structural violence. We aren't just treated this way in hospitals, but in many spaces and unfortunately, it is normalized. I spent a lot of time in isolation for this reason. I prayed a lot because I didn't understand why I was there, why I was alive, or what my purpose would be. I prayed and I asked for what that purpose is. I didn't know why I was living how I was in my waking life. And then I turned to a more spiritual understanding of things, of life in general. This is when I sought more connection to my culture and also to my spirit. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But pain is also a teacher. That moment of being dismissed when I needed care the most became a turning point for me. It reminded me that we need to raise our voices even when they shake. I just need a second. Sorry. That we need to advocate, not just for ourselves, but for all those who cannot yet be heard. I began to speak out. I began to write, organizing to tell my story in spaces that weren't always made for people like me. Because if we wait to be invited, we'll be waiting forever. We make space by standing in our truth, by being authentic. It was through this journey that I came into a relationship with Indigenous climate action. They thankfully were a very, very safe space for me. I was so ashamed of how I looked because of the car accident. Through their healing justice work, I was offered opportunities to learn about collective healing, not just for individuals, but for our communities and our ecosystems. Indigenous climate action's approach helped me understand that healing isn't linear and it isn't private, it's relational, just like the land. Their program supported me in building my capacity to facilitate. They would invite me to their meetings, and at first I just wouldn't show up, but they kept like inviting me and wanting me to come. I think because they understood where I was coming from. They taught me to speak publicly because that's something that I really asked for. I wanted to develop myself a lot more professionally, just so that I could be able to share my story and to advocate more, and also to lead with both vulnerability and strength. They held space for me when I was discovering my voice, and that gave me the courage to begin using it. Healing justice for me means restoring what colonialism has tried to sever, our relationship to ourselves, to each other, and to the land. It means creating spaces where our people can grieve, heal, and dream collectively, free of judgment and harm. The Land Back movement is not just about reclaiming land, it's about reclaiming relationship. Many relationships that the legacy of residential schools had tried to eliminate. It's about returning to a way of being where the land, water, and people are in balance, where policy reflects lived reality, where healing is collective and justice is embodied, not just imagined. As Robin Wall Kimmerer reminds us, the Serviceberry thrives in relationship, in networks of abundance, not competition. We can build that kind of future, but we have to start by listening to the land, to our bodies, to communities who know it best, and to those who have carried knowledge through generations of colonization. And for us to have consent over all of these things. Healing justice is not a side conversation. It is the foundation for rebuilding everything from food systems to health systems to legal systems with care, reciprocity, and responsibility at the center. And to close, I would like to say to those in positions of power, we are not asking for charity, we are demanding justice. To my fellow land protectors, we are not alone. To the young people listening, your voices matters more than you know. And to the land, we will continue to fight for you because you have never stopped fighting for us. Nakume, thank you, and land back.
Oh, Elalan, thank you so much, Brianna. That was wonderful, and you did absolutely amazing. And you know, it's such a powerful thing to be able to share your story and fight through those powerful emotions that bring it up. But it's those powerful emotions that help us to stand strong for what we believe in. And so thank you for being here with us today, and thank you so much for the work that you do. It's so important. Um, So I'm going to go and share my screen, and hopefully we're going to get good results this time. So we have the language of creation. So today the theme is a gift in motion, but before we can truly understand how we can love creation more fully, we need to understand the word love. And so we're going to take it one step further by touching on the evolution of language to understand what happened to love. So we have this quote from Robin who says, Saskatoon, Juneberry, Shadbush, Shadblow, Sugarplum, Sarvis, Serviceberry. These are among the many names for Amelanchier. Ethnobotanists know that the more names a plant has, the greater its cultural importance. And that's from page 3. So this is true for plants, but it's so true of so many other things. El, Elohim, Shaddai, Jehovah, Yahweh, Adonai, and Abba are some of the names we find for God in the Bible. If you look outside of the Bible to other faiths and spiritualities who pray to a creator of some sort, you will find many, many more names. What greater cultural importance is there than a creator? Regardless of the specifics, most cultures around the world believe in some form of higher power that is responsible for the creation of everything we know, including humankind. This is something that many of us have in common, and it puts us on the same page. So we know that most of humankind believe in some sort of higher power, call it what you will. We also know that the golden rule also applies in various forms throughout different cultures, and therefore we know that most of humanity are therefore encouraged to treat others humanely. Sadly, this isn't always the case, as Brianna shared with us as well this evening. And I believe that a lot of this has to do with the evolution of our language from a nature-based language, a nature-based culture, to a culture and lifestyle of production and dominance. And so if all of this is mainly true, then we are all encouraged to love, and we fall short as we miss the mark when we don't say hello to our neighbors, or we take a bus and we don't talk to anybody on the bus, or, where we might see a husband and wife go out on a date and not even talk to each other the entire time because they're on their cell phones with each other. And I have seen that. Worst date ever. We have this quote here from page 19 where Robin says, if the sun is the source of flow in the economy of nature, what is the sun of a human gift economy? The source that constantly replenishes the flow of gifts. Maybe it is love. If love is the source that constantly replenishes the flow of gifts, then we need to understand this word love better. So language has adapted and evolved over time to what is relevant in the world. Language in itself is a gift. However, because it's always changing, it is a gift in motion. Language is a dynamic and ever-evolving entity, and its transformation over time is both fascinating and profound. Since the era of the Old Testament, the languages spoken and written have undergone significant changes. The Old Testament was primarily written in Hebrew, with some portions in Aramaic. These ancient languages were rich in cultural and historical context, deeply intertwined with the lives and traditions of the people who spoke them, very much like Indigenous languages are still today. We fast forward to today, though, and the English language has become one of the most widely spoken languages around the world, serving as a common medium for communications across diverse cultures and nations. This shift from ancient languages to modern English highlights the fluid nature of language and its ability to adapt to the needs of its speakers. Moreover, language does not just change over time, it evolves through dialects and regional variations. Dialects are a testament to the adaptability and resilience of language, reflecting the unique characteristics of different communities. For instance, English itself has numerous dialects, from British English to American English, each with its own distinct vocabulary, pronunciation, and idiomatic expressions. These dialects evolve as communities interact, migrate, colonize, and influence one another, creating a rich tapestry of linguistic diversity. Understanding how language changes and dialects evolve helps us appreciate the complexity and beauty of human communication and underscores the importance of preserving linguistic heritage while embracing the inevitable changes that come with time. And speaking of preserving linguistic heritage, there is a Mi'kmaq word, Gizidayin, which means you hurt me. But it's in a romantic connotation, which means you touched my heart. And this cute little meme of the kitten that's saying, my heart aches when you're not with me, is just sort of I find it's a bit of an example because, you know, we have all these words to say the same thing. Gizidayin, Gizidayin. My heart aches. I don't know. So the way we speak about love has evolved significantly over time, reflecting changes in our culture, society, and language itself. In ancient times, particularly in the context of the Old Testament, love was often described using specific terms that conveyed different aspects of love, such as familial love, romantic love, and divine love. Did you know that there are at least 6 different words for love in the Bible? First is agape, which is the highest form of love, which is often referred to as unconditional love. It's a selfless, sacrificial, and unconditional love, and it's often used to describe God's love for humanity, for God so loved the world. Philia is the next word for love, and this term refers to friendship. It denotes a deep, affectionate bond between friends. Whereas in John 15:13 speaks that there's greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Next, we have eros. This word is used to describe a romantic or passionate love. We don't find this one as much in the Bible. However, you will find it in the Song of Solomon, which is quite a romantic poem. Next, we have storge, which the term refers to a familial love, like between parents and their children. Raham, which is a Hebrew word, which translates as compassion or mercy. Again, it's similar to a familial love, of a love a mother has for her child, especially if it's a last born and gets away with everything. And then we have the word chesed. And this Hebrew word is often translated as loving kindness or steadfast love. And it describes God's loyal and covenantal love for his people. With the spread of English as a global lingua franca, the language of love has become more homogenized, yet it remains diverse and expressive. Modern English often uses the single word love to encompass a wide range of emotions and relationships, from romantic love to platonic friendship and familial bonds. However, the context and additional descriptive words help to convey the specific type of love being referred to. Phrases like unconditional love, true love, puppy love, and tough love illustrate various ways we continue to differentiate and describe love in contemporary language. Moreover, the evolution of love language is also influenced by cultural shifts and technological advancements. The rise of social media and digital communication has introduced new ways of expressing love, such as emojis, hashtags, and memes. These modern forms of expression add layers of meaning and immediacy to how we communicate our feelings of love and affection. In summary, the language of love has evolved from the rich, multifaceted terms of ancient languages to the more generalized but contextually rich expressions of modern English. This evolution reflects broader changes in society and culture, highlighting the adaptability and enduring importance of love in human communication. So love is important in our communication, but for it to be part of our vocabulary, it needs to be part of our way of life. Many Indigenous cultures adopt kinship as part of their way of life. We heard this word from Brianna just earlier. And then there's this quote from, it's still from Robin Kimmerer, but it's from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. And she does convey a lot of the same things in the Serviceberry as well. But I just happen to have this one handy. Knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. So some of the key aspects of Indigenous kinship models, I'm very sorry that my dog is barking. My husband decided to go outside without him and he's not happy about it. So some key aspects of Indigenous kinship models include extended family structure. So Indigenous kinship systems often extend beyond the nuclear family to include a wide network of relatives, creating a strong sense of community and support. It also includes reciprocal responsibilities. So kinship involves mutual responsibilities and obligations towards family members, the community, and the natural world. This ensures that everyone is cared for and that resources are shared equitably. A lot of my family come from Jersey, from the Channel Islands, and I was very intrigued learning about how they lived sustainably because they lived on this small island, and so they had to regulate absolutely everything that they did so that there was enough for everybody. Another key aspect to kinship is a connection to the land and nature. And kinship is deeply connected to the land, the waterways, and the sky, and it defines a person's identity and their relationship with the environment, emphasizing the interconnectedness of all living beings. Another key is cultural and spiritual guidance. And this is where elders, knowledge keepers, your kokums, your grandmas, they're all going to play a crucial role in passing down this cultural knowledge, traditions, and spiritual beliefs. And they provide guidance and support, ensuring the continuity of cultural practices. And then we have ceremonial roles as well, and holistic well-being. This holistic well-being integrates the physical, emotional, spiritual, and cultural health so that everything is all balanced and harmonious. And we find that today there's a lot of imbalance in our lives, and we need to go back and find that balance, which we can do through some of this love. But our English word love has often been diluted to express a range of superficial sentiments, losing its profound meaning and connection to deeper relationships. In contrast, Indigenous languages and kinship models emphasize a holistic and reciprocal relationship with nature, where love is not just an emotion, but a fundamental principle guiding interactions with the land, with the community, and all living beings. And this nature-centered language reflects a deep sense of kinship, where love is intertwined with respect, responsibility, and interconnectedness, fostering a harmonious balance between people and the environment. So, the question that we are going to discuss today, once you get into your small groups, is what does our language, our English language, say about our relationship with creation? And you get bonus points if you speak another language and you can mention whether you notice any subtle or not so subtle differences in your other language and how we treat creation. So what does our language say about our relationship with creation? So Shannon's going to break us up into some groups, some small groups, and Remember to pick somebody from your group that might be able to share with the greater group when you do return, and you'll have about 20 minutes. And Nikki, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we thought that the words we have in English don't really describe love. We don't have, we don't have that picture that a few other things came up that did describe love a little bit better, like the Anishinaabe story about describing Creator's love, where rivers flow from the top of the watershed and bring the nutrients down and nourishes life as it flows down to the greater body of water, which is where the Creator is.
Mhm.
One of our group members, he thought that creation is where one meets the Creator. And I thought that was lovely. We wouldn't be alive if the water wasn't there. And then there was the Serviceberry's description of love, where it's nurturing and giving, all for our own welfare, all for our welfare, and expecting nothing in return. And Elin, a lady in our group, had her mother Low German word for love. It's ecological, and excuse me for the translation, and it means I am you good. So I'm all for your welfare. And we talked about the environment, where we tend to separate ourselves from the environment. We don't really think of ourselves as part of it. And better words of describing our connection to the environment, what our First Nations people talk about, all my relations, where we are, the whole environment is related to us and we're related to it. We're a bit sad. We talked about how we've done dreadful things to the earth, where the earth has been so patient with us, as Brianna said so beautifully in her speech. We have done dreadful things to the earth, and we're leaving. Oh, sorry, there's a helicopter. We're leaving a disturbed and fractured world as far as nature is concerned, which leaves us disturbed and fractured. But feeling ourselves as part of nature keeps us connected and stops us from feeling disconnected. So thank you, everyone. It was a beautiful group to speak with, and I learned quite a few things from listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Murdo, would you like to go next?
Okay, I'll try mute, which I did unmute, which I didn't do one time before. Basically, we just started throwing out words, and then all of a sudden, a couple started to run. Someone brought up for Canada, particularly our use, the Christian concept of dominion over creation. Sorry, and of course, I was thinking dominion can't. We're talking about dominion over creation as having had a very serious negative impact on us and our relationship with creation. And someone else, Kate, came up with, we were talking about creation. She pointed out, what pronoun are we using? It. And that betrays so much about our relationship. And by the way, somewhere along the line, all our relations came up, it's, and I confess that I went initially, which is quite a long time ago, all our relations, what are they talking about? Anyway, I've learned. So I guess we came down in the end sort of to a bit realization that we've lost our relationship. Our relationship is broken. And so when we're talking reconciliation with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, it's so much more than what we might say. We need to try to find a way to get along with our Indigenous neighbors. It's all of the relationship. I'll try to be quicker. And so we need to move away. And so our language, I mean, that whole biblical thing, which we get into, all the different words, and we only have one, which mostly becomes superficial. Anyway, I have no idea. I told folks in the group if there was something quick they wanted to add. Is that all right, just in case I've missed something that was really important?
Yeah, anything else really important? I don't know.
I
I think you
just-
did a great job, Murdo, but
Thank you.
sorry.
I'll just add that we also talked about our use of the word exploit, which
Yeah.
often use that word in talking about natural resources, and it's been a negative, unhealthy effect.
Yes, yes, for sure, for sure. I just want to go back for just 2 seconds. And Murdo, you mentioned Dominion. You guys talked about Dominion in your conversation, and we have so many different versions of the Bible, and this is why it's important to get a really, really good version, because Dominion was mistranslated. I was a little bit of a Hebrew scholar when I went to seminary school. So we really looked into that, but it's the versions that we get after the 60s and 70s when we start to understand the language from the Dead Sea Scrolls a little bit better, and how some of those words are very specific. And so that's not necessarily that we're supposed to have dominion and take control and have power over the earth. We're supposed to, take charge and take care, like you would, like a mother would take charge of her household lovingly, right? Like a sibling might take care of their child. Hopefully, it's lovingly. So yes. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. It's just, again, just on that dominion thing, which we have, realizing that every copy of scripture we have is a translation. And so in that word dominion is all kinds of cultural crap. Sorry.
It's very true, right? Marianne McDonald. Oh, you're muted, hon.
Yes, thank you. Our group also talked about the word dominion and kind of came to the same discussion that has just been had. But it also showed us that it really, it's the way we're ingrained with this information, and it continues on into how we react in society. One of the things in our group, we had a number of people who grew up in farming areas and farming communities, farming situations. And land, when you talk about what's our relationship with creation, land was seen as something that was an enemy, in the sense, well, not the land, but the nature was seen as the enemy. When you're trying to farm, you had to get rid of the weeds, you had to get rid of the bugs, you had to control. And that is part of our language situation as well, that takes us away from being part of the ecosystem, where we have been indoctrinated with the fact that we were top of the food chain. Man was top of the food chain, whereas really we are part of the circle and part of the ecosystem. So the language there has made us believe or treat the land and nature in a different way because of that, because we don't see ourselves as part of it. We see nature out there and us, instead of us being part of that nature. So we did a lot of discussion around that. We also talked about, let's see, what else? I'm losing it here, sorry. There was a lot of discussion around what people have learned. Yes, one of the things was sharing of some books that people have found very helpful in understanding this. One of them was the Jacob's Boot by Trevor Harriott, who talks about, it was brought up by one of our members that talked about our break with the land. When did that happen? When did we not become part of the land and treating it in a different way? So I think we had very productive discussions. If anybody else wanted to add to that, please do. That was in my group.
I just want to correct the title, Marianne. It's Jacob's wound, as
Oh.
in the fight between Jacob and Esau.
Oh,
So his
sorry, I
wound-
copied.
Yeah,
I wrote something down
Jacob's-
here, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, thank you.
so
Wonderful.
yeah,
I've
Trevor
heard of it.
Harriet wrote Jacob's wound. Mhm.
Yeah, very, very good. Very- we're gonna take Virginia and then Sylvia after, and we'll see where we're at for time, but we're probably gonna have to start wrapping up after that. So Virginia, would you like to share?
Hi, yeah, I was at the last minute asked to be the spokesperson, but Marian, I didn't really take notes, but I think from what I can remember from what everyone else was saying was that, land was considered acquisition and to be dominated. And also, I think monopoly somehow came into the conversation about what monopoly teaches about the land. The land is there for the taking, if you have the money. And it's again about dominance and male dominance. And so that, the land is not something that should be treasured. But I think what Marian decided that I should speak because I was sharing my story and I could so relate to a lot of what Brianna was saying and I could feel her pain. Sorry. I think, in the culture I grew up, there was the concept that, by the minority white, I grew up in South Africa under apartheid. Maybe that would clear it up a little bit, where, that word non means non-white, non-citizen, non-valuable, non-everything. So that's sort of, you are removed from the land. My ancestors were removed from the land. So that relationship was not one of being sacred. You had been moved out and you have very little land, but yet my dad grew fruit trees. So, and we had peace. So at least I had that little bit of being fed by the land, so that the land, I realize now, is sacred. But what the church was saying and what the experience was so different. So there is that tension all the time as to who am I, where do I belong? And with regards to what Brianna was saying about medical services, it's not that the resources were not there. You will just not have access to it because of who you are. And I think it's only, by speaking out on what she's doing, telling your story, that you actually then start realizing I am part of creation. I'm part of who God created and I'm unique. And, once I started accepting that God loves me no matter what. So for me now, being an immigrant in Canada, just seeing God's creation every day during every season of the year, it says, I belong. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing, Virginia. That's very special. Thank you. And
I just have a question. I'm not quite sure. Am I supposed to report for the group? Like, do you have group numbers or something?
nope.
Oh, so because I don't know how to put my hand up. 'Cause
Oh, so if you go to the bottom, along the bottom, it says chat and react and share and all these things. You might not have
I
share.
can
But
see reaction.
if you go under react, you can raise hand, but I'm just going to take Sylvia now, and I think we're going to have to start moving along to other things.
Okay. We brought up most of the points that were already brought up about dominion and about feeling separate. A few things where we differed is we saw creation as something female. because we call it Mother Nature. We don't call it Father Nature. We always address it as Mother Nature. And if you've ever raised kids as a mother, you know that your children take and take and take and take, and rarely does someone give back to the mother. So another thing was one of our group members spoke Spanish, and she said that to give birth was a certain word in Spanish. Don't ask me to repeat it, but it means to give light. And I don't think we refer to that in the English. We spoke about how the English language just doesn't have the completeness of words that you might have in an Indigenous tongue to refer to nature. Nature is something that we see as separate from us, talking about that dominion and domination point that was brought up earlier. Also, someone in our group talked about the wilderness. Nature is seen as the wilderness. It's something wild. It needs to be tamed. It needs to be feared. You fear a group of lots of trees. You fear the forest. So what do? You cut them all down, right? The fear is gone. You can enter safely. We also spoke about sometimes our last names and our places that we live describe actually some land feature or some water feature that is close by. I know I live in a place called Bell River. Well, I don't live in the river, but it's a Bell, B-E-L-L-E, meaning, a beautiful river. That didn't dawn on me until we had this discussion. And I think that's pretty much everything that we talked about that was different than what was already brought up.
Thank you very much. Clearly, we had some very rich discussions this week. And I would love more than anything to pick it apart a little bit more and hear from more of you. I just want to make sure I'm respecting everybody's time as well to make sure we wrap up in a good time. I'm just going to share my screen again real quick, and we can look at the word cloud that was made last week. And hopefully you see a blank screen right now. And boing, there is our word cloud from last week. So people were really feeling gratitude, inspired, grateful, hopeful, a lot of really fun words in there, connected, celebrated, and this is just how sort of the book was making them feel and the topics that we were covering last week. And so we're going to make sure that we do another word cloud for this week. This one was shaped like the world because it was Earth Day last Tuesday. So you'll have to wait and see what shape I decide for this week. Maybe it'll be a tree, who knows? But Shannon is going to put up the poll for us. And you're just going to have one question in there in one word. Describe what the land and or creation means to you. So try and keep it to one word if you can. And you just click on that and you should be able to answer it. Just over half of you have answered.
I couldn't get it to work. Oh, well.
So it just doesn't work for me, period, because I'm a moderator and I don't get to answer. So I don't know if anybody else has any tips for those who are having trouble answering.
Oh, okay, so you can just put it in chat if it doesn't work for you when it pops up, but if it does pop up, put it in the thingy. I don't know what that made any sense.
I think you have to click on the actual map thing and
Yeah,
then
if you
No,
click on
you have
that,
to click on
then a little space comes up, like a little, and
yeah,
you can
then
type
then
in
it
there
comes
and
up.
then hit
Yeah,
submit.
you have to
Okay.
you have to scroll up to
So
make
you
the
just
short
click on
answer box
there's
come?
the map of Canada with the beautiful like Haida carvings. You click on that, and then all of a sudden underneath it will come up a little space where you can
Yeah.
type.
Oh, you
And then
gotta
type
scroll
it in,
down a little
then
bit.
hit submit.
Okay.
Nothing like that I saw. No, I can't get
See,
it.
look at this kinship. You're all watching out for each other. It's beautiful.
Oh.
When it comes to technology, that is so essential.
Survival.
It's love.
Yeah. It's so my husband and I are into the microbreweries, and when they got really popular about 5 years ago, one of the we were also farming at the time, and you know, as a small business ourselves, and so one of the things that we really noticed was how that kinship model operated in that kind of setting, and how everybody was working really hard to collaborate with each other. And you know, breweries would, you know, we had extra jalapeno peppers one day, and we just gave them to one of the brewers that we talked to, and so once a month they would make just a small batch, just a one kegger, and they would have like just a special community night and invite sort of their most regular patrons. And so it happened to be Halloween, and they made a special keg of their main lager and threw some of our jalapenos in with it. So it had that little bit of spicy kick to it. And you know, it was just all the collaborations that we got to do when we were a small farm. It was just absolutely amazing. And it was that kind of community and that kind of sticking together that you know, that kinship model was just so alive for us through that. And I mean, as farmers, of course, we were also very connected to the land. And I forget who it was, but somebody was mentioning that they had a farmer in their group that was speaking, and everything is your enemy. You're trying to get rid of the weeds and the bugs. And we switched over to regenerative biodynamic farming, and it's just absolutely amazing how, you know, when you companion plant, when you get the right animals introduced into the growing system, and when everything is its own little biodiverse environment, it's amazing how everything just sort of works really nicely. And we never used pesticides, and yes, there were holes in the lettuce, but that showed you it was organic without any chemicals. So make sure when you go to the farmers markets and stuff this coming season that if it's got holes in it, it's okay. Yeah, it was regenerative biodynamic farming. It was biodynamic because we had the animals introduced into it as well. So we've done the poll. I'm actually going to pass things over to my colleague Shannon, and she's going to talk about Jubilee just a little bit more. We touched on it last week just a little bit, so she's
Very good,
going to say a little bit more about it for us.
Thank you, Carolyn. So we've been paying attention to the Serviceberry, and we just want to remind you, as Carolyn shared last week, that the concepts from Jubilee and Robin Wall Kimmerer's the Serviceberry have a number of concepts in common. Both are emphasizing justice and reciprocity and the restoration of relationships, and have roots in Indigenous cultural traditions and beliefs. And so these two themes are really working together as we look at deepening our relationships and seeking justice and trying to build up reciprocity in various ways. One point of connection and opportunity to explore these themes more deeply is called the G7 Jubilee People's Forum. A People's Forum where there will be much reciprocity and many relationships we trust. and happening at the time that the G7 leaders are meeting in Kananaskis, the people will meet in Calgary, June 12th to 15th, so just at the beginning of the time that the G7 leaders are meeting. And many, many things are going on in those 3 days, including an interfaith worship service. But I wanted, particularly for you folks who have read the Serviceberry and come to hear these Indigenous speakers who have such wisdom, I thought you would be interested to know which parts of the People's Forum are particularly focused on Indigenous wisdom and I realize as I look at the written list that there's one major one missing. There will be Indigenous openings each day. We do have an Indigenous global partner. I've practiced this, but Sandra Zoti Atz, Amaya Kachkil, a woman from Guatemala. There will be a global Indigenous conversation where Sandra will be in conversation with Indigenous folks from the local area, and a workshop on Indigenous concepts of Jubilee, where you can explore some more of what's been explored in this Serviceberry. What didn't make it on the slide is that the People's Forum has been invited to Stoney Nakoda land. Reverend Tony Snow from the United Church, that we know from the United Church, is a Stoney Nakoda person living near Calgary and has invited us to come to the place, a sacred place where the medicine wheel is and where we can gather with Stoney Nakoda elders and pray for the proceedings of the G7 leaders and pray for the justice we want to see in our world. And so that is, I want to just, go back for a second. Registration for the People's Forum is happening now. I would invite you all to come. I would particularly invite you to think about who from your community should be there. Who should you make sure can make it? And see who you can invite, who you can perhaps help to attend. We know that travel costs are expensive and etc. Perhaps groups can get together or churches can assist for people to be together and then to bring the concepts back into your community. And then I will just say that all year long, we are working on this petition to show the people's desire for economic and ecological justice, where we are looking for debt cancellation, for systemic financial reform, and the transformation of exploitative systems. So please, if you did not do it last week or haven't done it before, use the QR code or the link that I'll drop in a moment and sign the petition. We also invite you to get a paper petition and take it out in the places that you frequent. So I thank you very much for being part of the Jubilee campaign and for being, and from my heart, to being here this evening. Back to you, Carolyn.
Lalen, Shannon. So yes, please look for those links in the chat, or whether you managed to catch that QR code while it was still up. Make sure you sign the petition. It's the easiest thing that that you can do, and you know, if you can, or whether you know somebody else that can help support our Jubilee campaign, that would just be absolutely wonderful. Shannon has put those links up in the chat now, so if you look into your chat, you'll see links for to learn more about the Jubilee and where the petition is, as well as the Jubilee People's Forum. More information there. I am just going to share my screen one last time once you manage to click on the links that you're interested in clicking on. Again, if you miss any of the links tonight, just send me an email. My email's in there's somewhere. You might have an email from me anyways. You can just reply to it, and I can get you those links if you've lost track of them. I'm just going to share my screen for a second here. And where are we? There we are. Yes. So I'm just sharing this screen here right now. And so my Mi'kmaq lesson for you guys today is the word Wilaliach. The Q is a little bit guttural, Wilaliach. And Wilaliach means not only thank you to all of you, it's plural. Wilalin is singular to one person. Wilaliach is to a group of people. But not only is it a thank you, it means that you have made my heart good. And so I just want to remind everybody that session 3 is next week on Tuesday. That is 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Toronto time. And our guest speakers will be Sean Lonnie, who is the author of An Army of Problem Solvers. I got to read his book while I was doing my Masters of Environment. And he will be bringing with him Elder Darcy Wood, who is a co-founder with him of Aki Energy and Aki Foods. The Army of Problem Solvers really talks about sort of that journey, but we'll hear more from them next week. And they'll be talking about Indigenous values embedded in business and social enterprises. And I believe Brianna is around here somewhere. I'm going to invite her back so that she may close us off in a good way.
Hi. Okay. Thank you all for being here today. As we come to the close of this gathering, I invite you to pause and reflect, not just on what you've heard, but on what you felt, and what you will carry forward. I am reminded that in our cultures, closing is never truly an end. It is a circle, a continuation, a way of walking together into what is to come next, with deeper awareness and shared responsibility. So I offer this closing prayer, a quiet moment to honor what we've shared and to send our thoughts out into the world with intention. Okay, Creator, God, ancestors, thank you for gathering us today. Thank you for the teachings exchanged, the truths shared, and the courage it takes to speak, listen, and grow. We give thanks for the land beneath our feet. Even if we are far apart, we are still connected through the sacred web of life. We give thanks for those who came before us and for those who will come after. May the work we do today honor their memory and protect their future. May we leave here not only informed, but transformed, ready to act with compassion, to lead with integrity, and to walk gently but firmly in the direction of justice. Let the conversations continue beyond this space. Let the teachings ripple outwards like stones in water. And let us remember every voice matters, every step matters, and the path forward is one we walk together. Thank you. Travel safely in body, in spirit, and in thought.
Thank you, Brianna. That was beautiful.